it's really important to channel what you feel. And that is something that, I'll be honest with you, that can't be taught. That's not taught. You either are a writer or you're not. You're either a poet or you're not. We can tighten up the technical side of what we do, but the soul of art comes from that person's life experiences and the way that they see the world. Nobody teaches you that.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is a singer, songwriter, producer, and DJ with a massive catalog of music that has earned her 2 Grammy nominations, over 1 billion streams, and shows all over the world. She has written tracks for A-list pop artists like Justin Bieber, Britney Spears, and Usher, while also dominating the dance music scene by writing and performing hits with artists like Porter Robinson, Zedd, Hardwell, and many more. This is Bright Lights.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the party. I'm super pumped to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think y'all are in for a treat today. I think we're about to get a master class on music business and the artist journey, because this girl has been doing the damn thing. As you heard in the intro, you have quite the history and quite the Rolodex of experience in the music game. So I'm very excited to dive in with you. And I'd really just love to start by hearing a little bit about your story. I read that you started singing in the church.
Yeah.
I know, like, all the dopest singers and songwriters, that's always where they started. They all, like,
For
everyone that came
sure.
from the church scene, like, they just fucking crush it. So you got started pretty young. Tell me a little bit about, like, your story and how you came up in the music industry.
Yeah, I think the first time I was really drawn to music was very, very young. It was like one of my first memories, in church, and what they call like feeling the Holy Ghost, right?
Yeah.
Like people say that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I realized it at such a young age, but I really understood that was music. Like, I really understood that without music, I wouldn't have felt that. I wouldn't be in that emotion, right?
Yep.
And so I really was, from that point on, just drawn to music. My mom wanted me to be a singer. She wanted to be a singer. And then even when she was pregnant with me, she was always playing music and teaching me to sing as I was growing up. And then I started performing very young. I was touring by the time I was about 12 with a band and also with the choir.
Okay.
I did that for 3 or 4 years, almost 4 years, 5 years. The marching band we were the band for the #1 football team in the state, like year after year after year.
Damn.
So it was
where
like
was that at?
in South Carolina.
Okay.
So it was like real tour life,
Yeah.
when you're on the road with the team that's doing those kind of wins, like we
Yeah.
were really on the road with them. So that was my first taste of touring. Then I started going out with the choir and we were touring churches all around. I would do that every summer. And that was a full on tour. That was like a proper tour bus. That was a heavy, heavy tour. So I did that for a few years, and I eventually ended up leaving a pre-med major. I was going to be a doctor, and
Okay.
I ended up leaving that and going to Berkeley to pursue music.
I want to know about that moment right there, because I think that's a really interesting part of your story. That, there's a lot of people that go to a 4-year school thinking like, this is what I'm supposed to do, because we're very socially programmed to, go to college, get a degree, and go down that path. So, like, what was the moment where you actually made that decision? Like, what was it that actually got you to be, to take a very courageous stand and say, hey, I'm gonna actually go for something else? That's a scary thing to choose.
I produced my first record. Yeah, I produced my first song. So I was always writing. I've been writing since I was about 8 or 9. but to actually have a recording. The first recording was on ADAT. It was
Oh
like
wow.
at the transition of analog to
Yeah,
digital.
yeah, yeah.
So my first record was on ADAT, and my second record was Pro Tools. But yeah, producing my own record, I remember my friends saying, "Oh my God, I can hear this on the radio. This is crazy." And
Mm,
so I thought, wow, like maybe I could actually make a living
yeah,
off of music. It was never really a reality to me because I come from the middle of nowhere, like
yeah,
where that's just not even a thought in your head. Even if you do music, even if you're good at it, it's not a thought of like, oh, I could maybe do that for work,
yeah.
you
And you think
know?
part of that was having somebody else hear it and kind of getting that feedback from somebody kind of
Oh,
got you to
definitely.
open up your yeah, 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 yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So for all you that are sitting on your tracks and not putting them out,
Put them
this might be your
out.
sign. Put those fucking
Put
songs out.
them out.
Yeah, get some of that feedback, get some of that validation. Let's do it. That's cool. I'm
Hmm.
happy to hear that. So you said, "Fuck it, I'm out pre-med. I'm gonna go to Berkeley instead." Best,
Yeah, it was still a hard choice because
yeah.
I went from having a full scholarship. I was on a full academic ride
Mm,
to no scholarship.
mm.
So, from getting 40,000 a year to paying 40,000 a year,
Little different.
it was a big choice, and it was
Yeah,
people thought I was crazy. People thought I
yeah.
had lost my mind.
Yeah, and you got to be a little fucking crazy, right? That's so rad though. Like it takes a lot of courage, like to follow your heart, to take that leap of faith, to to
Mhm.
to ultimately believe in yourself that much,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm literally gonna
Yeah.
put my money where my mouth is, right?
It was really in my heart. It was
Yeah,
really in my heart to do it.
hell
And
yeah.
I remember my dad sat down with me when I made that decision, and he was asking me all these questions to make sure that that decision was really in my heart and it wasn't something that I wanted to do for money or fame or anything
Mm,
like that. He
yeah,
wanted to make sure this was really a heart thing.
yeah. It's making me just think about how many songs and big songs you've created since then. How many like millions and millions of people have heard those songs? How many people have danced to those songs and
Mhm.
cried to those songs and made love to those
Mhm.
songs? So, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if you didn't make that decision, none of those
Mhm.
songs would have been born. None of those songs would have been channeled through your vessel and brought down from the universe and fucking born into this world. So
It's
that's
true.
that's a wild thing to think about. And Wayne
Yeah.
Wayne Dyer has one of my favorite quotes. He says, "Don't die with your music still inside you."
Mhm. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Or
So
your
that's
art inside you.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Beautiful. So, you went to Berklee College of Music, one of the best institutions for music out there. How was that experience for you?
It was good. I didn't know music theory. So Berkeley taught me music theory. I didn't even know like what a major and minor scale was before I went to Berkeley.
Cool.
Everything was like by ear. I didn't even know what a major or minor scale was when I first got to Berkeley. It also really taught me how to lead a band.
Mm,
Because think about it, when I was touring and playing all those years, I wasn't leading. I wasn't like the lead, there was no lead singer,
yeah, yeah,
so it really taught me how to be able to hop on stage with any musicians and be able to perform and have
yeah.
a impromptu show and just jam and yeah, just how to communicate with musicians. I think those were the two best things that Berkeley taught me.
That's cool. So, did you have bands like outside of school? Were you playing in
Oh
bands and stuff?
yeah,
Yeah.
I had a ton of bands. I had like a rock band that was kind of like Evanescence.
Hell yeah.
I had a hip hop band. I was always a rapper too. So I had a hip hop band. It was like a jazz hip hop band.
Side note, real quick, I'm gonna throw this out there because I have this little. Like I play the guitar and I just kind of fuck around, but like I can shred, I can throw down.
I
There's a
saw you.
there's a part of me that I'm like, man, I kind of want to start a band, and like I love metal, but I really love like female vocals and like the contrast of like heavy music
Mm-hmm.
with like light vocals and Evanescence, like they were the ones that
Yeah.
crushed it. So just throwing this out there, any female singers that are listening, if you want to join my band, I'm gonna start a fucking band and I want to have a girl that's fronting it. So that's super cool that you did that.
Yeah. I love those kind of bands like Paramore or just
Yeah.
like female fronted rock bands. Did you see the No Doubt Coachella performance this year?
I saw some clips of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
killing
they
it.
were crushing it.
Yeah.
I love to see that.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what was your introduction really into the music industry post college? What happened from there, and how'd you really establish yourself as a songwriter and artist?
My last year at Berkeley, I ended up getting cast on a reality show with Missy Elliott where we were touring around the country on tour with her and
Oh,
dancing and singing and rapping and performing. I was like one of the first few people kicked off, but
you made it though. That's sick.
that was my introduction to being a professional writer, a profession. Like I was making money at that point. That was the first time I had to register with ASCAP and BMI and learn about publishing and all that kind of stuff. So I had one more year at Berkeley, but because I already had started as a professional artist, I kind of like lost steam and I never graduated. And then I moved to New York. I was always an artist. I've always been an artist, but I couldn't get a record deal. So
Mhm.
I was like, well, let me try to write for other artists, beef up my pen, and
Mhm.
then, we'll see what happens. And then I spent about 4 years writing without making a dime, really struggling. And then one day I had a meeting that led to another meeting, another meeting, another meeting, and I came up very, very fast.
Yeah.
I went from no one knows your songs to everybody that I grew up listening to was singing my songs.
Yeah. And I really want to highlight that right there of just putting in the work, putting in the hours, and getting no return for a
Mm-hmm.
long time. You said four
Yeah,
years, you're just
four
sitting there not
years.
making any money, right? And then you had your moment, but like how many people are willing to work for free and not make any money and keep showing up and keep putting in the fucking
Mm-hmm.
time? A lot of us are so anxious for it to happen quickly, and a lot of people throw in
Mm-hmm.
the towel way too early, so
I
I
mean,
love to hear.
this is something I still deal with. I still deal with it. Like I just dropped a podcast, right? Episode
Mm-hmm.
1 this
Mm-hmm.
week. Episode 1 didn't hit the way I wanted it to hit. So what's
Yeah.
the first thought in my head is like, "Oh, did I make the right decision? Should I cancel the podcast?"
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times we pull back when really we should see something through
Yep.
and really we should just develop that, instead of letting a few, you were saying, drop your music and see what people say. Even if people say this is trash,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay,
Yeah. Straight up.
because you're developing. And even somebody like me who's developed as a songwriter, I'm still developing other crafts and other things that play into my business.
Yeah. Yeah. So well said. And I saw some clips from your podcast as well. Make it make
Hmm.
sense. That's what it's
Yeah,
called,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So let's give a shout out to the podcast. Everybody go follow this.
yeah.
What's it all about?
Dude, it's super niche. Like today, I was like, damn, is it too niche?
No, niche is
It's
good. Niche is good.
but I made it because it's something that I wish was out when I was coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's not a lot of professional artists, writers, or producers who will get on a platform publicly and talk about their own stories and their own experiences and shout out how much money they spent, how much money they made, what
Yeah.
that deal looked like.
Yeah.
And so I did it to share my own personal story, but also to create conversations in the music business about common practices and things that we all see that maybe need to change, or maybe something that worked that, hey, you could try that too.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to create conversations more than anything. But it's detailed. It's
Yeah.
very detailed. It's mostly for people who are in the business or want to be in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. my podcast is not the biggest podcast in the world. I've been doing it for a year now, which is incredible. What I will say is the people that are listening, the fans, the followers, they're so fucking dope, and they're so engaged, and they're so loyal. And everybody that's listening right now, I fucking love you. I appreciate all the DMs and the messages and the love and the sharing. You know what I mean? Like, we're building our little community over here. This sounds like 100%, you know, right up everybody's alley. You want to learn about the music business. You want to learn about deals. You want to learn about money and some of these behind the doors conversations, you know, that not everybody always shares. It sounds like an amazing, you know, platform and discussion that you're curating. So everybody go check that out. Make it make sense. Keep going with it. Just keep doing it. Keep showing up and keep putting it out.
I was thinking about you this week because you reached out to me about this podcast, and I was like, man, I wonder what his experience was in the beginning, like the first couple episodes. And like, it's kind of hard to get your bearings sometimes. Like, we're here recording camera to camera, right? Like, I'm at my house, you're at your place. The way we recorded was in a studio. And so now I'm like, does it connect more if people are looking at the camera, right? How we're doing it right now. So there's a lot of questions and things I'm working out, you know?
For sure. And there's no one right way to do it. I would love to do these in person if I could, you know, but I'm in Austin. A lot of people are not in Austin. So you know, it's like, you gotta make do with what you have.
But honestly, I think it might work better because we are face to the camera. Like, if you go and look at my first episode, I'm a little bit disconnected from the audience.
I see.
And here we're right here. So I like this. Yeah.
That's true. Good. Well, everyone go check that out. I'm very excited to listen to it as well. And sounds like, you know, it's so important. Like, being niche is important because it's like that's some shit that doesn't exist and people aren't really talking about it, you know? And so that's what I'm finding I love about these conversations as well too, is like there's just not a lot of this stuff out there. So we need more of it. The more the merrier. Let's bring it and add the value, you know? That's what it's all about. So you had this moment, you were grinding for 4 years, and what happened then? It started to pop off. What started to happen for you?
So my whole career started from a message on MySpace. Like, just a cold email, a cold call, like whatever you want to call it. Like,
I call it shooting your shot.
Exactly, shooting your shot. So I reached out to the VP of A&R at Island Def Jam at the time, who had just A&R'd the Speaker Box Love Below album, Outcast, the latest Avril Lavigne project, signed Avril back in the day, an artist Curly that I really loved, that was very unique and original. And then another artist that nobody knew at the time, but that I really loved, was Lady Gaga. And he had signed her to Island Def Jam. This was before her deal with Jimmy, before Just Dance, before the album even existed. So he signed her first, and I really loved his ear and his eye for talent. And I said that in my email. I love the kind of artist you're signing. I love the way you develop. Here's a couple songs. I think I sent 3 songs, like demos. Maybe I could come help write for some of your artists. And he emailed me back right away and said, I love what you sent me. Can you take a meeting? And I was freaking out.
Oh my God.
I was like, holy crap.
Yo, you guys, I've said this many times. Shoot your fucking shot. You have nothing to lose. Put yourself out there. But I also like your approach though too. Because a lot of times people are shooting their shot, but they're just like copy and pasting.
Nah, you got to be smart about it.
Yeah. You got to I love, like, you actually knew who you were talking to. You were actually like a fan. You told them specifically what it was about them that you liked. It's funny. I literally just yesterday, I shot my shot with the manager of one of my favorite bands. And I was like, yo, this is why I want you on the podcast specifically. And like what you did with the band and the branding that you had around the last 2 albums, you know, it was very specific. And so I think that's a great point. And yeah, it worked for you. That's fucking awesome.
So, you know, from there, I sort of quickly became known as like a really great writer. And I went from, Island Def Jam to Atlantic to Interscope to every major label who wanted records from me. And
Wow.
so it was a very surreal time because, I grew up listening to Usher and Britney Spears and Beyonce and, all of these kind of artists. And these were the artists that wanted to record my records or wanted to
Wow.
get in the studio. And so that was, I don't know, it was very, very surreal.
Dang. How did you handle going from 0 to 100?
By the seat of my pants. Yeah, luckily I had a great management team at the
Mhm.
time. When you come up so fast like that, it's not difficult to get a team.
Mm.
Like people can smell the money in the air and it's like, hey,
Yeah.
this is gonna go. Like
Yeah.
this writer's gonna go.
Yeah.
And luckily, the people that approached me and the people I was connected with were really good-hearted humans, like with a vision for what I was doing and a respect for the integrity of the art as well.
Yeah.
So I got really lucky and blessed that the songwriting side of what I was doing was so well protected.
Yeah. Yeah. So having a good team around you is
Hmm.
really key.
It was
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Smart. And were you also establishing yourself as an artist at that point as well, or were you just purely songwriting?
I was trying to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still establishing myself as an artist, if we're being honest. I left the pop world and went into dance, and I featured on all of these DJs' records, but those were their records.
Yep.
I wrote and I sang on them, but as we know in the dance world, like producers, DJs kind of run the dance world.
Yeah.
And they get all the looks and the opportunities and things like that. And they're looked at as the artist. To be fair, just because you're a singer doesn't mean you're an artist. Just because you're a producer does not mean you're an artist. An artist is someone who has something to say. And I've always had a very unique perspective and something cool to say that, isn't really said in the way that I say it. And so I am now moving into having records of my own, solo records,
Yeah.
where I'm standing on my own as a writer, singer, producer, and that is really, really hard. But it's something that's in my heart to do. It's something I feel like I have to do. I don't have a choice in that. If I made no money for 10 years, I would still do that because I'm an artist, like for real.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the question that you need to ask in your head if you're going to do something art related. If you're going to do something art related, would you do it for free? At 60 years old, would you be down to teach that?
Yeah.
Is it really a passion? And if the answer is yes, then you have to pursue that.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said. I had a really good conversation. I saw you did a track with Kalina Zanders.
I did. That's my boo.
Yeah. Yeah. Kalina is the homie. I fucking love her to death.
I love her. Yeah.
I had her on the podcast a couple months ago.
Oh, she came on sick.
Yeah. And that was a part of it was I did want to talk to her, and I've talked to a few other, singers as well that coming from the featured artist space, being the featured vocalist, and the common sort of trap of being stuck there while these guys go off and make 20 or 30 or 50 grand a night off of using a song that you wrote and that your vocals are on, right? And so it's a very like common challenge for a lot of singers and songwriters. It's like, hey, like I just got paid like a couple grand for this song and I'm not living off of it, but this artist is making millions of dollars traveling the world, right? And so I'm seeing a lot of artists, or a lot of singers and songwriters really wanting to establish their brand as the artist and putting out their own tracks. And so I noticed that, with you as well. I saw the last like 4 or 5 songs that you put out were all like solo songs, and you've got some very cohesive branding around it. And it seems like you're really like planting your flag in the ground and establishing like your identity for your artist project now.
Yeah, it's so much fun to do this, and I'm putting out my full album this year.
Sick.
Making an album is such a labor of love. Like, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I have actually 1 week to deliver the album to the distributor. I'm shooting the cover tomorrow.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so we're like really at the last final, whatever changes you make now, that's it, and wherever it is in a week, I let it go. And once it's out, and it's no longer mine. It's the world's songs, and it's everybody else's music at which point it's out.
Yeah. And what made you decide to want to do an album rather than just singles?
Because very few artists can do an album. You gotta be really seasoned to do an album. Like, you gotta really make records.
Yeah.
And like, if you ask the one thing that I do, somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I make records. I'm a producer." Yeah. Like, I've always been a producer, even when I was mostly known for songwriting. I make records. And so I wanted to make an album because so few people, especially in dance, so few people can make an album. It's difficult. It is not easy to make a body of work that's cohesive, that can be listened to from top to bottom, that's classic, that can be played 10, 20, 30 years from now. And that was my goal going into this, is just to make a body of art that speaks, and makes people feel something.
All right, you guys, I got to jump in here real quick just to share some very exciting news, but we are about to host our 2nd annual Cult Creatives Build a Brand Workshop. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've definitely heard me talk about the Cult Creatives. It's a branding and marketing agency that works specifically with artists, run by one of my best friends, Chris White. We held a workshop last year where we spent 3 days working with a group of artists to develop their brands, to really figure out, who are you as an artist? What are you trying to say? What's your identity? How are you unique and different and separating yourself from the rest of the other thousands and thousands of people that are doing this? But then also help them actually build the brand. So creating their logos, doing a whole day of photo shoots. So everybody's walking away with super high level brands created by a very high level agency that look professional, that instantly separate you from the pack. My favorite part about the workshop, though, was seeing all of the relationships that were developed. I've seen people working together now, doing collaborations. A lot of friendships were made. So just getting in the room and spending 3 days with some other driven, ambitious, hungry artists, developing those relationships is so important, and it's so much fun. And this year, I'm excited because I'm actually going to be a lot more involved in the actual programming. So I'm going to be doing some headliner mindset workshops, exercises. Like, we're going to emphasize that side of it a lot more as well. Just like, what does it actually take, not just from building the brand and the marketing, but like who you have to be as a person, the kind of mindset that you have. So I'm going to come in there. I'm going to work my magic, get everybody fucking fired up. I'm really excited about it. This is happening in Los Angeles for 3 days, June 28th, 29th, and 30th, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you're going to be in LA, or even if you're not, you should fly out for this shit. It's going to be incredible. Also, we do have special guests that are coming in every day. So we have some really big, really cool artists that are going to be guest speakers on all 3 days. It's going to be a party, y'all. If you're interested, send me a DM on Instagram. I'll get you on the waiting list, and I'll send you all the info once we get our site up. But it's going down in LA, baby. I hope to see you there. You were a really fun guest to have come on, because you're somebody that I saw you make a post on Instagram about, basically you had posted, I think, a teaser for a music video that you were putting out for one of these songs. Mm-hmm. And it looked so dope. And I was like, yo, I thought this was the new Dune movie. I thought this was like
Totally.
a trailer for the fucking new Dune movie. I was like, this is sick. And I was like, what? I was like, yo, I gotta get you on the podcast because you were talking about how you made your own artwork and video. You know, you made a whole post about how you made this whole music video for like $200.
Yeah.
So I'd love to. Well, first let me ask this question. It seems like there is a balance of doing a lot yourself, but also not doing it all yourself too. Like you also, to put out an album, you need a team too.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
I'm first, I'd be curious to kind of hear about who else like is helping you in creating the brand and the project and the album, you know, because it's a big undertaking.
I'm so glad you asked about that because I love to give the team shine. I think it's really important to talk about the people, you know, because the artist project really is a collective of people, right? At the end of the day.
It should be, because also I think a lot of people, especially more like bedroom producers, are just like, I gotta make everything by myself because I can.
That's a lie.
Right? Yeah,
that's a lie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like none of these people are making this on their own. Like think about your favorite producer, your favorite artist. None of that is made on their own. Even if you look at the credits and it only says their name, I can almost not 98% guarantee somebody else was involved in that.
Yeah. And usually like 5 or 6 people, you know, all of our favorite songs. It was not one person sitting alone on their laptop, you know, 9 times out of 10, there's a fucking team happening behind it.
Yeah. And the cool thing about collaboration is you have so many different perspectives. Everybody comes from a different walk of life, a different class structure, a different race, a different, everybody has different perspectives. So when you bring all of that into a piece of art, it makes it really special and really unique. And, you know, we're lucky as artists to be able to be the face of things like that. And my co-producer is probably the closest to me. His name's Nico Masika Aho, and he is from Finland. We call him the finisher because he has a very, very special and rare talent that you can bring a song to him that is, you know, written and pretty fleshed out, and he can take it from an 8 or a 9 to a straight 10, 11. You know, and that's a very rare talent, and that's something that's hard to find in this business.
That's the hardest part, is that
finishing
10%, right?
I was texting Blau about this earlier because we're both struggling to finish. I'm struggling to finish my album, and we were saying like the last 5% of a record takes 95% of the time.
Straight up.
You know, and so I'm so grateful to have Nico. He's such a good sound designer. So a lot of times I'll come with a bass line that's really dope, but he just makes it sound better and makes it fit in the pocket of the mix better.
Yeah. And you know, this is something that people don't, they just don't get it. They don't realize it. So I really want to hammer home this point because, you know, I used to work at Icon Collective, and
you did?
I worked at Icon Collective for a long time. I swear.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was the industry advisor. So basically I was the face, anything having to do with the industry. I was like the bridge between the music industry and the school and the students. So
gotcha.
So I was talking to managers all the time and industry people that are looking for producers. They're looking for talent. So I was doing a lot of dot connecting, and everybody looks up to Skrillex. By all means, he's the fucking man, incredible producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were even sending people over to Skrillex's studio to work on music with him, to help him. Right? Mm-hmm. People think that like, oh my God, the god of music production is doing everything by himself. It's like, no, like all these dudes, they got teams, you know, because also
and it's taking nothing away from that person. I've been in the studio with Sonny. He's one of the most talented producers that I have ever seen in my life. Right. Like on a whole other level.
Yeah.
But the best producers in the world understand that they got to keep their ear to the streets.
Yeah.
And the new talent, the bubbling, the developing talent, that's where the real grit is. That's where, you got to keep. Tiesto is a prime example of that.
Oh yeah.
Tiesto always keeps like up and coming, like new talent on his radar and in
Yeah.
his, work.
It's a paradigm shift around how you see yourself as a producer, back to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like, I just call it the bedroom producer, the
Mm-hmm.
bedroom producer that sees themselves as, I have Ableton and all these sounds, and so I have to do everything. And there's also even this feeling of like, I have to do everything. Like people
Mm-hmm.
feel like, I've talked to so many people that feel like, oh, if I don't create all my own sounds and I don't do everything myself, then
Yeah.
like I'm not, like there's this weird mental block in there. And really, it's all coming from fucking ego. Like if you have to do all of it by yourself so you can say that you did, you're making it all about you. You're not making it about the song. You're not making it about actually making the best music possible. So
You know what Frankie Knuckles said? As soon as the music becomes about you, you lost.
Yeah.
It's got to stay about the music.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
as soon as it's about you, it's over.
And that's where I want to plant the seed for everybody, is to start how you see yourself as a producer, even looking at like a more traditional definition or role of a producer. Quincy Jones, he wasn't playing all the instruments by himself. You know what I mean? He was arranging music for Michael Jackson hits, but he had a team of people making the music. Rick Rubin doesn't touch shit, but he's sitting there producing records,
and he's amazing.
He's not in there in Ableton, you know what I mean? Like doing sound design and shit.
I'm going to see a producer like that right now, right after we get out of this interview. I'm going to see a producer and sit down with the album. This producer, he doesn't touch anything, but he's an incredible ear. He has some of the best taste. Like he just knows good music and knows the market really well. And so it's always cool to sit with producers like that. There's so many different kinds of producers. Yeah. And they're all necessary. They're all valuable.
Yeah. And it's almost like the goal should be not like, how can I make the best music possible, but how can I help this music be the best possible, right? And just to plant that seed with how producers are seeing themselves, it's like, start to see yourself as the Tiesto who has 3 other people that he's working with, like start to see yourself, like set that as a goal for yourself, that like, yeah, you can do everything by yourself, but go be a Sonny or go be a Tiesto or go be a Rick Rubin, where like they actually are, it's like becoming like a manager rather than an employee, like you're, when you're running a business, you go from, being an employee doing all the work to now being like, no, I manage teams of people so that this whole company can win.
No, you nailed it. You just nailed it. Those are the greatest. Like if we think about the biggest DJs right now, Tiesto, Steve Aoki, we could go down the whole list.
Yeah.
They are incredible managers. Incredible managers.
Yeah.
And they're artists too. Like those guys are stars.
Yeah.
And not everybody can be a star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Think about it. Like there's a lot of people behind the scenes and people who work on music that you put them in front of the stage and it's not the move. For real. Everybody has their place. And just because you don't get to sit up and shine with your face out and your name everywhere, it doesn't mean that what you do isn't incredibly valuable. And that's the narrative that I kind of want to change. That's the reason that I post on my Instagram with me and Nico and talking about how Nico's valuable to me and why we work together and what he brings to the table. Because I want people to see like, hey, it's okay to like show your process and your team. And like, this isn't a one person event. None of it is.
Yeah. We need to peel that curtain back and show the reality of like what's actually happening. Like, it is about collaboration. It is about teamwork. Right?
Yeah, totally.
So I love that. Shout out Nico, the finisher.
Masika Aho.
That's
The
such a cool name.
finisher.
That's such
I
a fucking cool
know.
name. We all need a Nico. Everybody go find yourself a Nico. He sounds like a badass. So you've got Nico. Are there other people also helping you with
Of
the
course.
bigger picture launch of this next generation of your brand and artistry?
So that's what's happening now, right? So a lot of times you don't really look for managers. You don't look for agents. It's more so those kind of things find you,
Yeah.
right? It's the same with, in my opinion, it's the same for like publicity and PR. Like interviews come to you and find you when the time is right.
Yeah.
And that's what I found. So recently I've been getting a lot of publishers reaching out to say, hey, like this catalog you're building is actually really cool. Like, are you looking for a deal?
Yeah.
And the good news is I'm a completely free agent, which most
There we go.
artists cannot say.
Yeah.
So I don't have a manager, I don't have a publisher, I don't have a label. And so, although that puts a lot of things on my own shoulders, it's also a very freeing feeling that I'm kind of able to build a team as I move forward. I'm able to build a really cool team. I've had teams in the past, but they weren't really able to travel with me through the solo artist route.
So what are you looking for now that you've been in the game for a bit more when it comes to a team? What are some of the, I guess, the qualities and characteristics that are going to catch your eye and make you say yes?
The main thing that I look for is somebody that culturally lives in the dance world, because that's where I exist. That's my roots as an artist. Somebody who culturally lives in the dance world, but that also knows how to cross records over, but that also knows how to, propel commercial music, because at the end of the day, I do make hits. Every now and again, I will have a hit,
Yeah.
and I need somebody who can really spearhead that and set those plays up. Hits don't happen on their own.
Yeah.
A hit is even more rare today than it used to be, because the market is so saturated with artists and records. But you can still have, especially culturally, significant records, but they have to be teed up properly. And that's, I think, what I struggle with the most on my own is not only do I make all the music, but I'm over here doing playlist pitches and, reaching out to Amazon Music and Spotify. Hey, here's my new record. So it would be nice I look forward to a time when I have a team to handle all of that. But like I said, I'm very patient. I've been down this road before where you're developing. And so, I'm just anxious and excited to release the album, whether I have a team or not, whether it gets 1 million streams or not. I don't care. It's just about getting the art out into the world, seeing who it affects, who it helps and impacts, who loves it, and just finding your team, finding your community.
Well, I'm personally so pumped for it because what I've heard so far has been fire.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's making like techno bangers and with incredible vocals on them. Like this is not your little fluffy mainstream, main stage shit. She's bringing some fire and some energy and some attitude and some grit with this shit. So
what's tough is that I've developed so much as a producer. The album was written and kind of produced like a year ago. So a lot of that's why I'm having such a hard time letting it go right now.
Yeah.
Because I've developed so much, and I'm just like, man, if I could just go back in and touch that song. And then today I had to tell myself, yo, let that go. Let it go. You already made that. Release the album. Stop trying to pick apart stuff.
When I love that we calling it a release, right? Because as an artist, you got to keep your creative channel open to be able to receive new creative energy on a regular basis. And if you are just creating and creating and creating but never releasing, it's like you get constipated. You get blocked up. So
that's one of the reasons I stopped being a songwriter. You know how many songs songwriters write that sit around and never see the light of day? That's why that's one of the many reasons that I left that field of work, like, a professional songwriter.
Yeah.
I would write 100 songs and the world would hear 4 or 5 of them.
Damn.
Now the 4 or 5 were very successful and they, made a lot of money. But, when you're a real artist, the money, it doesn't matter the money. Yeah. It matters that your soul is, what you feel needs to be out is out.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I sort of left that.
I love that. I want to go back real quick to, on the one hand, you've got your co-producer, you've got your people helping you with the album and the project. You're also doing so much of it yourself. And that was what, originally kind of piqued my interest when I saw, I'm like, damn, you just made this whole music video yourself. I'd love for you to share a little bit about because your brand is incredible. As we know, it's not just about the music, right? Your artist project is about telling a story, right? Actually, it's the artwork, it's the videos, it's the message, the narrative, the story, it's all the other stuff. You've done a really great job of creating the brand and creating the story. Can you share about what are some of the tools that you're using and tapping into? Because we do have, as much as we want, to collaborate and have, outsource stuff to other people, there's also a lot that we can be doing on our own. It seems like you're not only really crushing it in the actual creative direction, but I might even guess having a little bit of fun with it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some of the tools that you're using, and what are some tips that you would give to artists that, they're sitting on music, but now they got to figure out what do I put out with this music to actually make it look cool?
Right, because music without visuals today is, what are you doing with that? It doesn't even make sense. Yeah. So, you get this incredible song done and then you're like, whoop. A music video will cost, a cheap music video will cost you $1,500, $2,000.
Yeah.
That's still quite expensive, especially when we're looking at streaming rates and what we actually make off of these records. You need 500,000 streams just to recoup a cheap music video.
Yeah.
Not a lot of new artists can do 500,000 streams, 1 million streams. So I'm always thinking in terms of a business. I'm trying to make money off my music. I'm trying to find a way to survive off of my art. And that's the hardest part, honestly. That's the hardest part. So recently I started making my own music videos. I've been using Artlist a lot, which I really love. They have some amazing footage. And what I found is that I love to edit. I did not expect that I would love to edit as much as I do, but it has changed my whole perspective on the way that I make music.
Oh, wow.
How so? I've always been a very visual writer. So when I'm writing, I'm always seeing things in my head. But now I'm seeing transitions in my head. I'm seeing and that could be at this location, or that could be edited in this way. That could be green screen. That could be, so even today, I'm thinking about putting another song on the album very last minute. And the first thing in my head was what would the video be?
Yeah.
And how can I do it affordably? And that's the hardest part. So, I edit in iMovie. It's like working in GarageBand, know.
I get it. It's fun. I haven't done too much proper video editing, but I just making my clips, and I make little content for my programs and stuff, and it's this isn't that hard. You just drag shit in and do a little splice right here, and I'm if I can figure it out, anybody that knows how to use Ableton can figure this shit out
totally
too, it's not that hard.
I'm at the point now where I've learned enough where it's starting to box me in. I need to move to Premiere or one of the other platforms where I can have more options. It's like moving from a controller to CDJs. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
eventually you get to a point where you're like, man, there's possibilities that I want to do that this just doesn't allow.
Yeah. So Artlist.io, that's where you can download like stock footage,
Yeah,
videos and
it's
stuff.
like $30 a month and it gives me professional footage, especially for like visualizers and stuff like that. I will say it's very difficult to make a full video out of that. I'm shocked that I was able to do what I did for Bound.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that idea about rotoscoping the mirror and connecting two different worlds, there's no way I would have had enough footage for that. It was just a super creative decision that allowed me to do it like that.
Yeah, you guys definitely go check out her music video for Bound. This was the thing that caught my eye. I was like, "Yo, this is fire." It was
No,
really
people
really
thought I
cool.
had spent like 50K. And
Yeah,
and I was like, I gotta do a explanation video. I can't
yeah.
have people out here thinking I'm spending 50K on a video.
Pretty dope. And honestly, I mean, I think it's just going to get more accessible as well. You know, just the role of being a creator is changing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like
Yeah.
access to these tools, and with all the AI stuff that's coming out, like it's just going to exponentially increase. So it's cool that you're
Yeah.
tapping into it. And
Most of my cover art is made in Mid Journey. Now I do a lot of editing. As you can see, the covers actually look like me. That the
yeah,
Mid Journey's not looking like me,
yeah, yeah.
so there's a lot of art that goes into that. I pull a lot of pieces and backgrounds and clothes from Mid Journey and I put all
Cool.
that together for the album covers and for the single covers.
So yeah, you're killing it. You're just fucking killing it. I'm so blown away. I really love it.
Thank you.
You know, you had made another post that really caught my eye about how I'll pull up the quote actually. I wrote this down. You said that if you don't have a great song in an hour, pull up another track.
Hmm.
And you were talking to somebody in the studio about how you have to really find the heart and soul of a song at the beginning, like quickly. And
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because you've written so many hits. You've written songs that have gone on to be massive. And I'm curious just about like your creative process for when it comes to writing songs. Like I really love that idea of like finding the soul of a song, right? So
Hmm.
how do you find the soul of a song?
You stop overthinking about what you want to do. You go in and you think about life and like where you are and what you feel like today and what mood you want to evoke, and the songwriting is chords, melody, lyrics. That's all
Mm.
songwriting is. It's not a track. Songwriting is not drums. you know
Yeah.
Songwriting is lyric, melody, chords.
Hmm.
So, you don't always have to have chords. It could be a bass line. Bass line
Yeah.
is a lot of times a melody. It could be a synth lead, but something that really speaks. It's really important to channel what you feel. And that is something that I'll be honest with you, that can't be taught. That's not
Mm.
taught. You either are a writer or you're not. You're
Mm.
either a poet or you're not. We can tighten up the technical side of what we do, but the soul of art comes from that person's life experiences and the way that they see the world. Nobody teaches you that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why it's important to like you got to be tapped into yourself,
Mm-hmm,
right? Like
totally.
like you got to be tapped into your own emotions and your own feelings and spend time in your thoughts, like I'm real
Mm-hmm.
big on morning pages. I think that's one of the best tools that any artist can do is sit down and write 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing every morning and just
Oh,
like,
that's what you do every morning?
yeah, I mean, I'm not doing it right now. I'll do it sometimes, but I have like people in my program, that's like stuff that it comes from the book The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron's book,
Okay, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's just sitting down and just journal writing every single morning. First thing you do, right? When you're
Oh,
still
wow. That's so interesting.
coming out of that kind of, dream state, you're still not really awake yet, and you just start writing. But,
Yeah.
there's been countless artists and, screenwriters, directors that like they credit the idea for their movie or their book or their song or their album that like coming from doing the morning pages. So just, yeah, it's a great way to just really take a deep dive into yourself on a daily basis, so you actually know. Usually we're so disconnected, right? We're just scrolling and watching fucking Netflix and going to work and being busy. So it's like, well, if you're not actually in tune with yourself, then what are you going to write about?
Yeah, you're the most attached to your subconscious in the morning, like when you first wake up. Yeah, I noticed that too. Even when whatever the first thing I do every day is the most important thing that I do every day. I always make the first thing the most important thing. What's the most important thing I'm going to do today? This is it right here in front of me. And it usually gets done rather quickly and with a lot of like soul and like heart to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mean just like whatever's like your kind of big task or thing that you need to get done?
Yeah, I usually have a list of, it's like a to-do list, a rotating to-do list
never
of things.
ending.
Of things that need to get done for the album, for certain releases, all kinds of stuff. And so I always prioritize it. And the tasks are always like moving up or around. And so whatever is the most important thing for me to get done that week, that's at the top of my list every day that I wake up.
Yeah. Solid. Any final words of wisdom or encouragement for the artists that are listening right now?
I mean, the only thing I can say is, it's so cliche too. It's like the never giving up thing is really what it comes down to. A lot of times as artists, we sit and we listen to things that are on the radio or on, your favorite playlist, and you're like, geez, how did this even get here? How did this person even get that, like with this song and this trash and this, like we all have those thoughts, right? Of like, Jesus, how did this get here? It got there because that person didn't give up. Like that's why it got there. So it's like anything is possible. It really is. And if I could say one thing, it's like, be unique. Don't be afraid to do it different, because what sets you apart, it's going to make it hard for you in the beginning, being unique. But in the long haul, being unique will give you a longer career. You'll be more respected. You'll be a pioneer. And I think I posted this yesterday. If the path in front of you is clear, you're probably on somebody else's.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a banger right there.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's not mine. I can't remember where I saw it, but yeah, I just, it always comes back to me because as an artist myself, I feel like I'm always like, weed whacking and like trying to cut down a path, because there is no one like me. And as frustrating as that is, there's also some peace in that.
Yeah, that's what we call being on your hero's journey, right? It's like you have that fork in the road and you're either going down the paved path that's already been laid out, or you're going off into the fucking wilderness. You're going off into the jungle. And you just have a little flashlight and a machete, and it's you by yourself, and you just gotta fucking hack away and pave your own path. And that's what, that's the artist path, like the true artist path.
For sure.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on to hang out with us today. I'm so excited for your album.
Thank
congrats.
you.
You're right there at the finish line. Everybody
gosh.
Check out her podcast, Make It Make Sense. And very, very happy to connect with you. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. It was a pleasure.